inability to respond to the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline, which was, carried out by Biden with help from his allies, right? Which would have enabled Germany to get access to cheap energy. I mean, that to me is a declaration of war. That was an $11 billion project that Germany and Russia collaborated on that unfortunately was destroyed by powers that be. That was, they claim, as a response to Russia's intervention that was required in the Donbass area to save its people. But Oliver, I'll offer a little bit of pushback on your claims on Putin. And look, I don't believe there's any such thing as a perfect leader. Only God is perfect in my world. So I'll never presume that Putin walks on water and that he's never made any mistakes. But when you say he's not a good guy, I mean, he's also got to navigate through a challenging political climate where, yeah, you do have Chabad Jews that were quite, influential and powerful before he took power, especially during the time of Yeltsin and, of course, during the time of communism from 1917 to 91, when they had destroyed Russia, stole all of its gold, its resources, destroyed the Orthodox Christian church there, destroyed 49,000 churches physically, plus killed over 200,000 priests, monks, etc., and killed 100 million Russians for their religion and just because they hate Russians. They hate them ethnically, especially because they consider Orthodox Christians to be the most stubborn, the ones least willing to bend. Because at least with Protestants, they can introduce all these revisions, reforms within the religion, kind of get away with that. And so that's why it's a lot more lax. With, of course, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they can, get their own invoked there or voted in as they have with previous popes and then change the rules, which they have. But with Orthodox Christianity, because it's decentralized, is far more challenging, and that's why they have a particular hatred towards Orthodox Christianity. You've seen it with, of course, the Armenian genocide, the Russian genocide, the Ukrainian Holodomor, and of course what happened in Serbia. They pushed for that bombing and destruction of the former Yugoslavia, with Serbia in particular taking the brunt of it, and they all have Orthodox Christianity as the common denominator. But with Putin, look. Russia's been expelled from the WEF for many years now. The Rothschild Bank has also been kicked out of Russia. All of George Soros' NGOs are kicked out of Russia. He's, of course, expelled or seized the assets of, prominent Russian Jewish oligarchs. You're familiar with Mikhail Khodorkovsky, I presume. He was the CEO of Yukos, the biggest oil and gas company, and he was the richest guy in Russia when he was arrested. He had a net worth of like $15 billion in around 2004. Same fate for Boris Berezovsky, also Vladimir Guzinski, and then Roman Abramovich took off. And you already know they accused Putin of also killing one of the co-founders of RT News, which they say is an arm of propaganda, right? Les, I think was his name. So, and he's also kicked out 7 rabbis that, fucked around and found out that they deemed as national security threats. So they're not scared to stand up to the Jewish problem. And I asked Joanne to put this up in the nest to claim that Putin's Jewish. So, I mean, look what he said about Jews in the past, and there's many more of these types of quotes. These people that are attacking the church, they're not atheists, said Putin. They're absolutely faithless people, godless people. Ethnically, many of them are Jews. So he says it quite clearly. The Jews are the ones attacking the church, and he's an Orthodox Christian himself, but you haven't seen them visit any synagogue. After adding that the alleged opponents of the church were also neither Christian, Muslim, these are people without kin, memory, or no roots. They don't cherish what we cherish. The majority of the Ukrainian people cherish as well. And, it was Rabbi Pinchas Goldschmidt who said, of course, challenged what Putin said, wherein the Putin's characterization of Jews can have dangerous consequences, kind of implicitly making a threat. And so some of these guys, of course, were punished. He was also one of Russia's chief rabbis that were telling Russian Jews to leave Russia, and many of them have. They, of course, a lot of them went to Israel. There's over 2 million Russian Jews that live there. As a rep of Jewish communities and someone who was forced to flee my home in Moscow, I call on Europe in the year. He says it right here, right? And this is Goldschmidt saying it in 2022. This is, of course, Jews also don't like serving the army. They like provoking wars, like they did with the proxy war in Ukraine. They don't like serving the army, though. They do like stealing homes afterwards, though, and that's what, Zelensky and his Jewish clan are doing now. They're systematically seizing the homes of the widows left over as a result of the proxy war in Ukraine, because they're defenseless. There isn't a man to protect them anymore because, well, he's been killed serving. And so he's stolen thousands of homes. And again, this is unreported in addition to the child trafficking that's going on as a result of what Ukraine's doing. So, Putin's got his hands full. So, but for you to think, and, the reason why, so when there's blame to be assigned, I'd say, and his regret, he admitted this himself, is he wished he'd intervened sooner in Ukraine. He waited too long. Because they started this genocide back in 2014, as you know, when there was the coup, the removal of Yanukovych, then later got replaced with Poroshenko, and now Zelensky, who's already exceeded his term. And, he sat back, watched, pleaded with NATO, even with Trump, 2017, stop this madness, stop arming, enabling Ukraine. So it should be amusing to anyone for Trump to claim he didn't start that Ukraine war. He absolutely enabled it, because it wasn't just France and Germany that were providing arms and enabling Ukraine to prepare for eventual war. And they had absolutely no intent to respect the Minsk agreements, Minsk 1, Minsk 2. The intention was always to, start a war. And that's exactly what happened. And Trump enabled that. It was just a formality to, essentially then, form or bring troops over, assemble all the troops along the border of the Donbass and do the invasion. Plus, NATO talked about wanting to install nukes in Ukraine as well to further provoke Russia. Plus, NATO just kept expanding. There's 14 bases surrounding Russia, and despite the fact there was an informal agreement in 91 with James Baker not to do so. And of course, there's the 26 or 46 illegal biolabs Victoria Nuland was operating within Ukraine. Once again, pass. So his problem was waiting too long. So yeah, I'll never say anything. There's a perfect leader. But look at the policies in Russia. Degeneracy is banned, right? There's no OnlyFans, there's no Pornhub, there's no gay marriage, there's no LGBTQ, there's no gay pride parades. Faggots and trans people cannot adopt at all, and it's just not tolerated at all. There's no GMOs in the food either. People are well fed, and despite the hardship the Russians have experienced from 1917 all the way up to say 2000s, they've been recovering quite well. They're a top 5 economy now, as they were at the time of the Tsar. And the future looks bright, despite the fact they've had to deal with numerous challenges. Things like the Chechen wars, between in the late 90s to up to 2005, to of course the invasion of Georgia in 2008, all the way up to what's now the current conflict in Ukraine that's ongoing. Though Russia's again issued numerous peace agreements that are more than fair, that's been rejected because Zelensky refuses to cede any territory, despite the fact that Ukraine is a fake state, never existed before until 1991. And the territories and borders that it even has now were only artificially created, and as a result of what the Bolshevik Jews, including Lenin, Stalin, and Khrushchev, gave to Ukraine at that time. The West, the East, and Crimea were all given to it by a bunch of fucking Jews that assembled that fake state. So, that state has no right to exist, and it really just serves as a NATO proxy to be able to provoke Russia, because their ultimate goal, of course, is to do the same to Russia as it's trying to do to Venezuela, which is they can't invade and occupy the country. It's too big. It's the biggest landmass in the world, but they would love to balkanize it, create divisions from within, as they tried with Chechnya, as they would try with Dagestan if they could, and as they've tried with with Chabad Lubavitch that's there. But, Chabad is quite weak there, and you see that because, well, if they wielded any real power and influence, then again, you see far more degeneracy. You see Jewry there. I know inflation rates and interest is high because it's time of war, and Russia's the most sanctioned country in the world. But they're managing, and despite all the challenges that I believe exceeding what the West expected, given the challenges imposed from proxy war to all the sanctions, and multiple assassination attempts as recently as last week on Putin's home, and yet he's exercised restraint, caution, patience, and avoided escalating things towards World War III, which is exactly what the Jews want, because I believe he's learned from the mistakes of the past. He understands that, if he acts as National Socialists were forced to in 1939, it turns into a world war. And that's exactly what the Jews want. So, he's doing his best to keep the conflict local, avoiding any attack on any of the NATO allies, because he understands that immediately, of course, involves invoking Article 5, and that, of course, then leads to, a global conflict. So we'll see how things unfold.
You think Putin's not one of them?
Did you hear anything I just said?
Yeah. Do you know how invaluable you will be when all of society, ceases to exist, when the lights go out like a solar flare, and the global intelligence is in your head?
What does that have to do?
Ceasefire.
What does that have to do?
I'm saying the amount of knowledge that you have in your head is unfathomable. You're going to be invaluable when the electricity goes out, and all we have is like passing knowledge from person to person.
Hey, listen, if the electricity goes out, and again, this whole fear factor of they'll shut down the electricity, it'll be permanent blackouts for extended period of time. Look, a doomsday scenario is definitely anything's possible. If they do that, it also impacts their own ability to have internet, to manage their own portals for healthcare, for transportation. Their whole world shuts down, and they'll love maybe living in their private islands and their bunkers for only so long. and they'll like wait for the anarchy to pass. But I don't think, I think more than anything, they want to instill this fear in people. So this way, the people will just be more compliant, obedient, and submissive and do whatever they're told. And of course, they're going to want to impose such policies as, biometrically with the biometric national ID, of course, and then of course the basic income as well. Everyone will be subject to, and then be able to freeze your accounts anytime they want. Should you oppose things like the next mandate for the scamdemic they want to impose next? So
yeah, tell me, I'm banned.
Stargate
I'm on a 30-day suspension.
Can I jump in because I don't want to go to jail?
Blue 84.
Can I jump in?
Of course, yeah, and Oliver, you're the guest of honor here, so always feel free to, my friend.
Yeah, he wasn't there. TruthTeller wasn't there in the beginning, so you would be in jail already in Germany. So I have to object your wording. You weren't there in the beginning of the space. So so I have to object the wording. I explained it in as soon as you say the Jews, you'll go to jail in Germany. So I object to that. Of course, I know that you don't mean anybody, but that's just the reality in Germany. And I want to share the space because it's amazing. So I just have to inject that. One anecdote I have from Russia, Putin. So there in Austria, there's a right-wing party, and they went to Moscow, but they had to speak first to Lazar, I think is his name, which is the rabbi, Putin's rabbi. So I don't know how much power they still have. I'm just saying, when I say he's not a good guy, he's just...
Okay, but Oliver, you got to judge power based on policy. I mean, your ability to...
Yes. I agree.
If you're going to claim there's power and influence there, then it should manifest itself with policies. And we know that when the Jews are in charge of countries, well, what happens? The kind of society turns atheist, communist, whichever, Jew alliance, and then there's degeneracy introduced, porn is legalized, there's GMO, there's shitty foods, and of course then there's Jewsry and high interest loans. There's IMF and World Bank loans. So we see the trend in countries where Jews are actually in charge and have power. Can you say the same thing right now happening in China and Russia?
Well, communism is Jewish.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a fascinating observation. Gee, thanks. Thanks for pointing that out. We're all smart as a result of that.
So, where was I? You were pointing out. Chabad is not left wing. So.
I said that in terms of the power and influence that the Jews exercise in Russia. Okay, well, if that's the case, I'm not saying they don't have any power and influence. Of course, they have some, but if it's as great as people say,
they have an autonomous oblast, bro. It's like the second Israel.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, but Putin didn't put it there.
They have an autonomous oblast. How many people live there?
Well, if you go, how many Jews are there? That's a good question because they say 2%, but we all know that the Jews are not 2% because 6 million didn't die in the Holocaust.
So you can't answer the question.
Well, you can't answer the question because all of the information is filtered on the internet.
Digressed. Big guy, you just digressed. And by the way, this isn't the first time the Jews have been relegated to a certain area. Go look up the Pale of Settlements during the time of the Tsar.
It is an oligarchy, and they all go to... They're all Shabbat.
You're not listening. This isn't the first time the Jews have had to congregate, assemble in one particular area. And you're aware that even in the U.S. in 1825 was Mordecai Noah that bought out an island for all Jews to be able to congregate there. So cool, let them go assemble in one place and leave the Goy alone. I don't think anyone...
Oliver, by the way, Oliver, I'm a big fan. This is the official 1984. I had to get on my backup account because I'm suspended 30 days, but I can't follow you back until it's up. I think I got like 3 more days. but yeah, man, I'm a big fan. My buddy Germar Rudolph, they actually picked him up in the United States for, denying the Holocaust charge in Germany. I mean, we're talking about a warrant issued by a foreign country on U.S. soil from a naturalized citizen. I mean, it's getting scary where it's going because, they're trying to send American citizens down to, prisons in countries they've never been to. And it's like, pretty soon an anti-Semite is going to be an enemy of the state. And you're 100% correct because, Theodore Herzl said, we'll make the anti-Semites our best friends. They use anti-Semitism to further their agenda. And when you just think where they would be without it, there would be no ADL. There would be no need for the state of Israel. All the money would dry up. But yeah, I'm a big fan, Oliver.
Thank you. I just want to inject that Chabad Lubavitch is not left wing. So That's not an argument. And what Putin is doing, that he improves conservative values and so on, but it's a very corporatist model, and there are a lot of Russian Jewish oligarchs he didn't jail because they go along with this
because they conformed.
Yes, because they conformed.
Well, I mean, the Russian mob, all the Russian mob carry Israeli passports, right? I mean, they're all in on it, man. And
you also have to look into the Russian mafia in America. It's
Roman Abramovich has a Russian passport and an Israeli passport. After he got kicked out of the UK, where did he go? Did he go back to Russia or did he go to Israel?
Where did he go?
He went to Israel.
Yeah.
So you didn't know that.
Yeah, and
so one of the richest oligarchs had a choice. Right. He didn't want to go back to Russia because he doesn't want to live under Putin. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, but
well, no, I mean,
Abramovich is also one of the biggest donors of Chabad Lubavitch. But okay, but
so then why didn't he go to Russia and live there? Because if Chabad Lubavitch has all this power and influence, and he'd be well protected there.
Yeah, you have to ask him.
Well,
but
they're worldwide too. They're
because I judge by his actions. Anything he says is bogus.
It's because he wouldn't be able to.
If life is great for Russian oligarch Jews there, then he moved there.
And you would have Chabad Lubavitch is global. They've got a global network, man. They're protected everywhere, but nowhere.
I full thread. They have over 5,000 homes, synagogues, community centers.
Well, you know.
Yes, I'm very much aware of how powerful they are when they were established, and they're about as powerful as B'nai B'rith as well, which has been around for over 150 years. Between the two of them, they control the left, the right, and all political entities for almost every country in the world. All I said was they have less influence than Russia. I didn't say they have none. Of course they have some. They're not as prominent as they are, for instance, in the U.S., where you literally see Trump having to go to 770 Chabad Lubavitch and commemorate the death of, the Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Like, you don't see Trump, or what's his name, Putin hasn't had to do shit like that since 2013. Now, was there a time when he had to appease the oligarch Jews in Russia? Absolutely. He had to get power and then consolidate power. So, yeah, you have to work with your enemies in their network before you can try to rise above. And even now, it's still a challenge. And I'm not saying they have no power and influence. They have some, but not as much as what they'd like. And I only state that based on policies. If things like LGBTQ, gay marriage, gays and trans being able to adopt, and GMOs were legal in Russia, you'd be right. I'd fully acknowledge he's a fucking puppet. I'd say it. But none of these are the case, are they? In fact, they go and they shut down and they go and raid the houses of girls doing OnlyFans. They go and raid anyone trying to do things like human trafficking. And yeah, I'm aware that, what's his name? Semyon Mogilovich still does live in Russia. It's a massive fucking country. He's able to do whatever he does in hiding and shit like that. But Russia's the only country that's actually arrested him once anyway. Now, should he be in jail for the rest of his life? Well, maybe he's still useful to them. Who knows? Because he's got, he's got an international network, and of course he worked with Epstein and all the rest too. So I look at both sides, and I still wonder why this guy still gets to walk freely in Russia. So don't think that I don't question things. I absolutely do. But to compare him to like how badly Trump and any U.S. politicians compromised, I'd say it's apples and oranges. And if I'm wrong, then why do they keep trying to kill Putin?
Well, how do you think the weapons end up in the hands of the cartels? The Israeli weapons. You got to have a guy
because the Mossad is the one giving it to them. Exactly. All those weapons are made in the U.S.
But Mogilovich,
blame the U.S. Then they gives Israel weapons, and then they transfer it over to the cartel.
You need a gun runner, bro. So you need a guy on the black market that can move those drugs internationally across. Like shit. You got to have a guy that does the dirt.
What do you think they've been doing since the 80s?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly.
America. Okay, so you wrote the thread, which I read and I agreed with it. Mossad was in Colombia, and Mossad was in different parts of South America. They're in Brazil too. There are many countries in South America and all over Central America: Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala. They're everywhere, right?
And who are they allies with?
They're selling drugs. Well, they're allies with the U.S. They're allies with Israel. They're allies.
Look at BRICS. Okay, you got Russia, right? These are in China.
Are they selling Russian-made weapons or U.S.-made weapons?
Well, here's the thing. What's the ultimate goal?
Can you tell me which weapons they're selling? Because Russia doesn't give away its weapons. The U.S. does. The U.S. gives away weapons to Israel.
Because look, what's the goal? The goal is to destroy America.
You're not answering the question. Who gives away the weapons to the cartels? How do they end up in cartel hands? Are they using
with a guy like Mogilovich?
Where did they get?
From Israel.
Well, how are they surveilling? Hey, genius! How are they surveilling people with Prime and Pegasus software? Who invented that? Did that come out of the Russian Justice Department or the U.S. Justice Department? Do you want to answer that
I mean,
question?
How
did
is
the cartel get Pegasus, you fucking genius? Go ahead.
there
tell everyone.
is no distinction between Israeli
So
and
you won't even
the United
This
States.
is why you're disingenuous, because it's quite obvious they got it from the U.S. State Department for whatever reason you won't admit it. Why is
Let
that?
me tell you something. In
Why can't you acknowledge the
1947,
fact that
they created
Assad
the
and Israel and
CIA.
the Jews totally control the U.S. They have access to all their weapons, their surveillance technology, their weapons that they all get for free or they steal it, and they're the
Yes.
ones giving it to the cartels in Mexico and in
Yes.
Colombia. That's a fact.
Exactly.
I'm glad we agree.
duh. I mean, Oliver North,
So what
I
does
think,
that
put
have
that
to do
on
with
record.
Russia? Russia's not the one that created Prime Software, are they?
Truth,
Well, I
I
mean,
think
you
you and
gotta-
Rage agree on so many things, man. That, like, you just slow it down a little bit. Like,
This is
I have
wait
no
a-
issue with
wait,
rage. Women and I are
you-
friends.
oh, you-
We friends can disagree on
I
like
love-
1%
I love
of things. We agree
TruthTeller.
on like 99%. So whatever.
All
You can be a
I'm
little
saying-
passionate about certain views, but I have no issue with the guy. He's solid.
We, we know that Iranian Contra. We know why we were down there. We know who we armed. Like, we know we put the Shah in Iran. We know that it was the United States and Barry Seal and now fucking Epstein moving guns. What do you think those planes were doing in South America? Fucking, getting all that cocaine they were found with. It was crazy stories, but we've always been the ones. Now they've made Israel their base. Right, with peerage, really, because that came from the British, right? So you have Lord Rothschild, who has, protection of the crown to create their little center of, crime base, right? But they have the above board businesses like the ADL, who contracts with the freaking FBI and trains all our sheriff's departments and yada yada. And then you have the Red Mafia, the Russian mob, where the things that you can't do in the daylight, you do underneath the table and you do behind.
It's the Russian Jewish mob. At least make the distinction. They're a bunch of Jews.
Of course,
Sammy
they like.
is a Jew. Felix Slater is a Jew. I can name them for you if you want.
Okay, so where those are the Bolshevik holdovers. Once Lansky and Siegel and all them took out the Italians, right? Because we know they did. The mob, they imported their people from Russia, and these are the Bolshevik holdovers, right? The fucking scum of the earth, and they took over the fucking streets, and they worked their way and weaseled their way into the fucking government. And there is no fucking, there used to be an above board and below board, but now it's all just crime, and it's rampant, and nobody's going to do anything about it. So there is no fixing it either. So, I mean, we can talk about it all day long, but at the end of the day, it's just going to persist because there's never been any accountability.
I think we should do an extra space on the Russia thing. I could say many things about it because I wrote a whole book about what was going on in Russia, but I think it pollutes the space now for the topic.
Well, I just know that they're all connected, and the ultimate goal, the goal of the Jews is to destroy America, right? Fall of Rome, Amalek, or whatever. But think about
in 84, it's actually it's interesting that you bring that up because the original kind of focus on the space was around this idea of the messianic age, right? And that AI is basically prospectively going to usher that in through Palantir and OpenAI and some of these other tools. So I'm kind of curious for how you think that plays into this, and if you'd agree with Oliver's sentiments that, as the way he put it, he thinks we're in the end game rather than the early innings of this kind of AI takeover. I'm curious for your thoughts on it.
Bro, it's been over. We were trying to blow the whistle, at least 6 months ago, and like the time to stop all this and to pump the brakes on it, that has long passed, man. And people just don't understand where it's at and what it's already doing. And we're talking mass, social, psychological manipulation to an unsuspecting populace. We're talking about 250 million people on X. I think you can't even get a damn number because there's so many bots running, psychological operations on here. It's like, who controls the bots? Israel. There's a company called Check, a guy Chernovich out of Israel, controls the flow of bots. Well, guess who's tapped into that flow, right? People don't get into the algorithms and all the machine learning and neural networks and the actual, scientific theories and papers behind that about, these machine learning and neural networks. But, they're grading your speech, and now it's multimodal because they can read text, they can listen to our speech. They're monitoring our speech right now. A lot of people don't know this, but the ADL, with using a neural network that was made at Berkeley D Lab with a bunch of computer scientists, is right now monitoring spaces, 10,000 spaces a day. And it's analyzing that speech, and it's ranking all of us. It's called the Online Hate Index B3, and it's the ADL's baby.
I'm sure we're very high on that list.
Oh yeah, I'm ranked number 7 anti-Semite in the entire world by CNN. So it's like, Netanyahu talks about an eighth front, right? So effectively, we're at war. People don't understand this. We are currently in a war, and all of your information that you intake on this platform is dominated by the enemy, right? And people think that they're going to learn, truth or see through the bullshit, but really it's all bullshit because Israel controls the bots. Israel verifies whether you're a human or not. And I'm talking this shit routes straight to Southern Command IDF. A lot of people don't even know this. I was fucking floored to know that X, right, Twitter, Elon Musk, has a research and development lab in Israel, in Tel Aviv, right? What the fuck? And you know who attends? Check, which is the X Unit 8200 Signals Intelligence. They're all X because you can spy on American citizens if you're no longer formally in the service of a foreign government. So they graduate Signals Intelligence Unit 8200. They back them by billions of dollars. They create a tech company with all these backdoors and fucking and then they plug right into all of our most sensitive. They plugged into our fucking government, dude. What do you think Doge was all about? They literally, and once the shit is on your network, there is no getting it. There's no getting it off. It is scanning every nook and cranny of every business. If you want to be on the internet, you are adhering to these terms of service and having this neural network scan for and filter content that they got a bunch of Jews. They did a study with a bunch of they hired a bunch of Jews to tell them what they thought was anti-Semitic. Like this is the brain trust that we entrust to censor our speech. It's fucking unfathomable.
Hey, Oliver, really quickly, I'd be curious for your thoughts and 1984's thoughts and Truth, if he has some, on Doge. And I say it because in the back of my head, I'm convinced that Doge served two purposes. Number one was cutting the fat and streamlining the leadership of federal agencies in the United States to get rid of, let's say, the old guard so that they could then bring in younger talent that's more reliant on technology and tools, which benefits the technocrats, of course. And that the other thing is, and I say this because I can't remember, it's either the Social Security Administration or the IRS, but one of them had one of the senior most individuals of their tech department resign, claiming that somebody from the Doge team uploaded the entire database to an insecure cloud location, suggesting that perhaps somebody was duplicating all of those records, which brings me to my conclusion, which is that I think Doge was basically a justification to plug in all of the AI tools and to suck out the databases from everything from transportation and travel and health and every other aspect of the federal agency's databases on the citizenry. I'm curious if any of you guys have thoughts on that. And Oliver, if maybe you want to jump in first, and then we'll go to 1984.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it fulfilled multiple purposes. So one of the purposes could really be to extract data, but it could also be to extract dirt on them. So I think Elon Musk also wants to have leverage over these people. So I think that was one purpose. It's amazing to me that it didn't do anything in the end, right? I heard 200 billions now. The Pentagon has more. But initially, I think it was a good idea. Also, you can really make bureaucracy more efficient with AI, but much easier is to get rid of all the laws, So there is some merit to it that I can help there, but of course their overall goal is controlling everything. And so, but what's interesting to me is if they stole the data and you can hack that, then we could also have it, for example. So I think there's a hope that much more of government, let's say, conspiracies come out because hackers can go into that. So I don't know. It's a rabbit, and how's it called? Rabbit and a race. The other eagle is the German word. So it's a race between of them. But in the end, the initial idea I think was a good idea, and we know much of the fraud now, which is there. It's in every fucking government program. So wherever you look, but now the people really saw it. But I think it has dual purposes, and I'm sure Musk wants to use it for his purpose. The big question is, what is his purpose?
Well, Musk is another. He's their chosen one too. Oh man, the rabbit hole goes deep on him. But I don't know if you've heard of. Let's see this. I don't know how to share it to the space. It's not letting me, but I put it in the comments. But this is what X R&D Tel Aviv. It's not a neural engineering site. It's a de facto 8200 forward operating base with direct code data and personal pipelines to Israeli military intelligence. The spying is not hypothetical. It's structured, incentivized, and already leaking. Okay, these people have spent $250 million this year, $100 million last year, and I heard 600 or 750 million. But this, when they do this stuff, right? They literally manipulate your mind by controlling what is put on your feed, and they're using AI to do it, right?
Yeah, and
in Texas,
please give me a post it anywhere, because I only knew that the identification company who checks you is an Unit 8200.
Yeah, and I just put that up into the nest for you, 84. And Oliver, you can find it above the conversation if you scroll to the top of the space. It should be right up there as the first. Here's a full list of confirmed.
When I'm out of the space, because I don't want to fuck something up. Can I see that later?
I'll send it to you directly as a message right now, Oliver.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the full list of 5 confirmed IDF founded partners with X. And people, want to say TikTok and Larry Ellison, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? He's an investor in X too. So is Prince Al-Wali bin Talal, the fucking, sex trafficker and fucking, well, long story short.
Larry Ellison is
Larry Ellison, Larry Ellison has an island in Hawaii, a private island, where he offered Elon Musk a place to stay to get off the drugs and dry out. Oh. He was that bad. Said he was fried, right? But the companies he's in business with, Authentics, right? The identity human verification, they have all of your biometrics already, right? And, well, I'll get into that later, but check the bot and ad fraud protection, which is, really, they're the ones who control the flow of the bot. So they want to say it's a Qatari bot, or if it's a Russian bot, they are the ones controlling the bots, right? There is no other bots, but they're bots. Cyabra, which is disinformation and bot networks, they run this is how they get the AI onto the system. They say that they're going to they'll get API access for diagnostic and, research purposes, right? And then they scan everything. It's like that ADL neural network literally listens to voices 10,000 spaces a day, compiles all of this information together, and then they give a report to Twitter saying, like, look, anti-Semitism has increased 6 million%, and it's like, well, how did you determine that? How many bots are on the platform? How many human people are on the platform? Because if Authentics has been contracted by Elon Musk to verify whether somebody is human or not, they're not doing a very good fucking job, like, at all. And they're the only ones who can know, because how do you verify whether somebody is human or not? You only have their biometrics and their face fucking scans. Now they have our address, and that Authentics company, mind you, is the subsidiary of ICTS International, who was in charge of the security and let 11 of the 14 hijackers on the planes for 9/11. Okay, that company, underwear bomber, shoe bomber, fucking all of the fucking terrorist attacks that have happened with PETN, by the way, have been under the supervision of ICTS International, right? And they're all kinds of spy lists that they were involved with. Menachem Otzman is the father of Ron Otzman, who runs Authentics. Now, why the fuck is Elon Musk in business with Israeli company tied to Unit 8200, directly tied to Unit 8200 intelligence, right? And the way Twitter is engineered is it's not just like a back door. I got it wrong. Grok corrected me because I said, it was a back door, and it's not a back door. It's an engineered pipeline of our data going straight to Israel. If you speak in Hebrew, it goes directly to IDF Southern Command. Similar Web, traffic and ad analytics, that's how they pass it off. And ORCAM. ORCAM is AI visual accessibility. So they're scanning our eyes, you people. I don't know if you have a Samsung or iPhone, but Samsung are getting shipped out of the factory pre-built with Israeli spyware. There's no way to fucking turn it off, right? It has access to all of your phone if you have a Samsung. This is you, and I'm saying, yeah.
Send me this out. I have a Samsung.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Now you couple the fact that PETN, tetrotritol, or whatever the fuck it is, the explosive, right, that they put in those. They like to say it was just pagers. It wasn't just fucking pagers in Lebanon. It was fucking iPhones. It was Samsungs. It was Ring cameras, Ring doorbell, anything with a lithium-ion battery. I found out that they are manufacturing lithium-ion batteries in mass and doing electric vehicles in mass. And personally, I need a gas mass a gas mass chromatography, like electron microscope, to verify it, which I still don't have access to. But I want to pull apart a Samsung phone and see if they're not engineering our phones straight out of the factory with the same explosive that ICTS was that was used in the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber. Anytime, maybe even fucking Charlie Kirk. PETN is their signature. And, what if it is that, they gave our president a fucking golden pager? We know that they blew up iPhones and they blew up Ring cameras and they blew up all that shit in Lebanon. We know that they're bragging about it. You've got, Betar Worldwide. Betar is Zeb Jabotinsky was a fucking terrorist. He's the one who founded Betar, and they operate with impunity on this site. Why? Because this is not social media. Okay, this is an intelligence operation, and they are. You see what it's done to fucking MAGA. Okay, Q and all that QAnon. It has fried some of these people, and they don't even know that they're fried because it was done on them while they were not expecting it. Right? They freely gave away their rights or their grievances with the terms of service. But we're talking about X right now, where we're at. I don't know if you can post this one in the nest. They are building a digital kill chain, just like they did in Gaza, right? It's called Lavender, right? Lavender uses AI. It uses the data of you and I and Palestinians, their facial biometrics, their social media. It uses that data to rank and score them as whether they are a terrorist threat or not, and autonomously target and kill them. Now, I am telling you, they are doing it on this platform right now. And they are using the online hate index, it's a machine learning neural network created at Berkeley to give us a threat score, a social credit score, if you would. Me personally, as the seventh ranked anti-Semite, according to CNN, I'm public enemy number one. Anything over a 0.8, you go onto the Lavender X list. Okay, so I don't know what happens then. Carbine 911, the company that was started by Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein, that literally predicts it's pre-crime. They've got it in all of our fucking emergency management 911 call centers all throughout the U.S. already. Just got bought out by Axon, which is this company who makes autonomous AI drones that are subsequently used in Gaza to autonomously kill their civilians. Okay, the people being killed by AI in Gaza is with drones that are flying, patrolling U.S. streets right now. And they just bought the company that was started by Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I'm telling you, what is the ultimate goal? And do you think that they are not all involved? Because anything you see about Putin on your screen came from them. Anything you see about Venezuela came from them. Anything you hear about Nick Fuentes or how cool this guy is or how many followers he's got, it came from them. They write the algorithm. They rank whether you are a threat or not. Me personally, I tell them go fuck themselves. I'm not worried about you. Come get me, fucking Jew. But they have done absolutely everything else to me. Doxed me, fucking swatted me. I found a bullet at my front door. So, I mean, you guys got to realize that we are at war, and it is all of them versus us. And it don't matter what country they're from. Look, Venezuela, what a joke. Hellerstein, ICTS International, the judge, he was the one who settled all those fucking cases during 9/11. They actually had their Jews in Congress allocate $11 billion for the survivors of 9/11, which is admirable, but they did it so Hellerstein could fucking settle them without discovery and keep all that evidence buried. Everybody except for one lady. I love her. I'm about to do a thread, but man, she's an unsung hero because Hellerstein is prosecuting what's his Maduro. Yeah, it's all a show. And, Trump pardoned Bernie Kerik. Bernie Kerik's the one who was in Israel August 22nd, meeting with, Witkoff. And, dude, they paid him $250,000, and a week later, he shows up with the fucking hijackers' passports. Get the fuck out of here, right? And then he got caught with fraud because he didn't want to give up his sources. And guess what? Trump fucking pardoned him. He's friends with Larry Silverstein. When people realize that our president is complicit in 9/11, Stephen Witkoff is complicit in 9/11, Hellerstein is complicit in 9/11, dude, nothing that comes over your feed is real. And it's getting harder to determine what is and isn't real because I've had fucking bots send me voice messages. And I'm like, it's getting insane, to be honest.
Well, and Oliver, do you? I'd be curious for your thoughts on this, especially because of the subject and kind of this AI overlording. When it comes to X, one of the things that 84 just mentioned that has been a concern of mine for a while is not only the bots, but the merging of the bots with AI to the point that they'll be able to replicate not only conversation prospectively with, let's say, vocal inflections, right? They could join spaces and have full-on conversations, and we're seeing that. I know Diligent uses that in his space, right? But the thing that makes me even more fearful is a not-so-distant future where the bots could be deployed at any point for any purpose that serves the people in charge, where not only could they participate in the moment, but they could also instantaneously hit a switch and have 1 million or 5 million or 10 million accounts automatically be populated with historical content that didn't exist just a couple moments ago, but now it does. These all look like accounts that have long-standing histories, that will have conversations that have gone back and forth and threads with one another, and that they'll now be flooding the zone, giving praise to Trump or Netanyahu or any other subject matter that X needs to make look popular, which we know that's unfortunately how a lot of human beings operate. That's the entire idea of what they think of as a halo effect, which is where, because something is either positive or viewed positively, you presume that it's better, right? And so you can just see in the present, Ben Shapiro puts up a post, and TruthTeller or lots of other people can go in and make a little remark and basically say, we don't like you because of X, Y, or Z reasons, and you lie. And the likes that are accumulated on maybe TruthTeller's response way higher than Ben Shapiro's. So it obviously makes him look rather foolish, right? But I can see a not so distant future where they say, hey, we need Ben Shapiro's message to be perceived as being more positively than it is. And then they just deploy those bots with all those fake comments, with all that fake history. And you can envision this world where it'll be extremely difficult to determine what is popular, what's not popular, and it all essentially becomes completely fictitious. And so Oliver, I'm curious for your thoughts on that, and then I apologize, but we'll go to New Glory, who I know has had his hand up for a long time, to get him involved in the conversation.
Yes, X is a training ground for that. I'm sure of that, and it will go exactly as you said. And it was funny. I think all of you had the Zionist accounts in your timeline, and I clicked on it, and 99% of the comments were bad. So now they are not doing that anymore, because it created the not the illusion, but the people saw that the Zionist accounts are not well liked. So what you laid out will be the next step. And I also don't think that they try to monopolize more or less the space of free speech. We all know it's not really free speech, but we should use it as long as we can. So we are all still on X, and we should use that. But I'm sure that's where it's going. But this will be an ability. I want to say one other thing. So it will be a much wanted ability to distinguish between humans and AIs. And there will be, I forgot to say that in the beginning, you will have two identities. So there will be the one digital ID. This is coming. You can't do anything about it. There you will do the official things. You buy the CO2 approved things and so on. And there will be a black market. You will also have a digital identity which doesn't identify you. Nobody knows that it's you. But on the blockchain, in the blockchain world, you will have a track record. For example, you always paid back your debts. So the other people can identify you in, did you stick to your promises? And this will be the shadow world, but maybe it's through Thor next, or how is it called? The network, the dark web. I don't know if they can prevent that, but you will have some kind of second identity. I mean, I'm not so fearful now of them listening to my space, because everything I say is publicly anyways, or most of it, what I'm allowed to say in Germany. But for normal people, in quotation marks, who don't have much followers, it's maybe a little bit more dangerous, because you think you are anonymous, but you are not. So they know every one of us. So
no, you are not anonymous. Look, sorry to interrupt you, Oliver. This is just what happened to